for the results to be there, and this is the first condition to be a coach, you actually have to put yourself, you don't have to, you get to put yourself out there and be uncomfortable, because the starting, and this is why in the coaching world we say we're client zero. And I would venture to guess that any coach who has gotten started on this path, they likely started to go in this direction because they were dealing with some challenge that they had to work through in their own life. And if you're a coach listening to this at this point, I will take you back to your own story of struggle.
It's like the careers that we have, and I think this is true of all careers, is every career or every job we have affects people in some way. Like you can't do a job without affecting most jobs. Perhaps there's some jobs that don't affect people as much as others, but every job has people that it affects. And so it's like, I wonder about the jobs that really affect deeply somebody's life. Like if you're doing a surgery on somebody, like that's a huge effect, right? And so like if you don't like take that like with a grain of sacredness, you know, like it's a sacred responsibility we have to serve people and do the work that we do, knowing what the impact is.
And we're live. Welcome,
Coaches Nation.
All right. Okay, go for it, Daniel.
No, you can go for it. You go first. All right, you do it this time.
Thank you. Well, welcome, Coaches Nation, and we're super excited to talk about this because we're going to be sharing some stories about client successes in the hopes of helping you understand the power of coaching, but also our lessons learned in the process. Because at times, I didn't know what success meant, and my clients helped me understand what it meant. But in my mind, it was not a success a lot of times. And also really talking about the impact of it in individuals' lives, in families, in communities, in organizations. I used to think coaching has an effect on people until I started doing it. And then I was like, holy shit, this is bigger than me. And I don't think a lot of coaches who haven't started this and haven't served at a higher level, they realize the impact yet. And hopefully with the stories that we share, the impact that we've seen within our clients and their families and their communities and their organizations, the ripple effect of that will connect you back to the mission, the vision, the heart that you started this whole process with, and why it's so important for you to actually do the work, even if it feels uncomfortable in the beginning for you.
Yeah, when you say the word client successes, the first place my mind tends to go is like, oh, they made more money. But that's actually not the only success that is important. In fact, sometimes it's not even close to the most important success for that client. The more important word is the word you use, which I was thinking as you were saying it, ripple effect. What is the impact that the coaching is having in their life? Maybe it's the results they signed up for. Maybe it's other things too. And it can be pretty broad across their life to have many different kinds of results. So I'm excited to talk about this because I think it's true that sometimes we forget about the ripple effect. Like, are you asking your clients in session if they, what the impacts were, what the results they're seeing in their life were? Because that's an important point about, coaching sustainability for coaches is like, you got to feel the results, right?
Yeah.
In order to keep going sometimes. Because if you just get no feedback and you don't feel like you're making a difference, well, that can feel very unfulfilling.
Yeah, for sure. And for the results to be there, and this is the first condition to be a coach, you actually have to put yourself, you don't have to, you get to put yourself out there and be uncomfortable, because the starting, and this is why in the coaching world we say we're client zero. And I would venture to guess that any coach who has gotten started on this path, they likely started to go in this direction because they were dealing with some challenge that they had to work through in their own life. And if you're a coach listening to this at this point, I will take you back to your own story of struggle and really go through it and see what happened. Because I think the theme and the power and the growth and the struggle, all of it lies within our own story. And the more I've coached others, the more I've become aware of the impact of my own story on me and on those around me. And I'll take you back to the time when I started as a coach. When I started out 10 years ago, even though I wanted to coach others, but to be honest, I didn't have the confidence or courage to do it in the beginning. I had to kind of muster it up. but the reality was that I was trying to grow myself. I was trying to start a new life. I was trying to overcome a lot of hurdles and demons internally within me. I was trying to show up as a better human being, as a better leader in my own life, and the reality was I wasn't, and I painfully knew that, and I had tried for a long time on my own. I had hired people, I had connected with people, I had a lot of mentors and coaches at that point, and I was growing. But I was like, you know what? Maybe the next level for me is to actually put myself out there. And that wasn't like oh, let me share with the world what I know. I was actually scared to do that because I was like, I don't know anything. Let me figure out how I can pull answers from others. And I saw the path to growth from a couple of leaders that I knew at the time, who one was a trainer and a teacher, the other one was a coach, and they both said, it's like, do you know why a lot of trainers and teachers teach? Because they want to learn themselves. Do you know why a lot of coaches want to coach? Because they want to grow themselves. It's like, holy shit, I was just thinking I have to know a lot to coach people. I'm like, no, I have to be open to knowing a lot as a coach, which also connected with my one of my interests is philosophy, was in the just term philosopher, which comes from a lot of people have heard of Pythagoras, which we study and sure a little bit in our school system around the theorem that we learn around the triangle. But actually, the character is a very interesting character. We were never taught the history of him. He was a religious leader. He was a his interest was in philosophy, geometry, arts, architecture. In fact, he was considered one of the most powerful characters at the time. He was one of the few who went all the way to India, and he was given a guru, Indian guru name, Pythagoras. I don't remember what exactly it is. And he was famous throughout that journey because he mentored a lot of people. He came back, and he actually coined the term philosopher in Greek at the time. But before that, people used to use the term mystic, and or a wisdom or a wise person, which meant that somebody who knows. But he's like, no, I don't know anything. And the term philosopher, which actually really means the thirst to know more, or somebody who wants to know more.
Well, isn't it the love of wisdom? Philo is like
The
love, and the love of, and Sophia is wisdom, basically
yeah.
philosophy,
So he
right?
didn't want to be considered a wise person or a mystic. He wanted to be somebody who wanted to gain wisdom, because he didn't actually think that he had it. He was on a journey to learn that, on an adventure to learn that, and that process has been lost pretty much across the board. And the few people who have it, and I think coaches kind of carry on that legacy of how can we learn, how can we grow through our own development, but the growth of those around us. But I'll start that as a starting point. What are your thoughts,
That
Andy?
brings up the whole point of like, what are coaches? What's one of our jobs is to love wisdom and love the pursuit and the gaining of wisdom for ourselves and our clients, because that's what leads to client successes, is the wisdom to know how to navigate things, right? Like there's information, and then there's knowledge, and then there's wisdom, right? It's like you can know a lot of things and have no wisdom. If you don't have any adversity or experience to draw on, it's going to be hard to have high degrees of wisdom in a lot of places. But a lot of times for coaches, it's the adversity and the being able to navigate through that to some degree of success, or even a little bit of success, that gives us some wisdom, right? Like I for myself as a coach, I draw a lot on my own challenges, my own experiences. Because what else do I have to draw on? The things that I've learned and applied through a lot of pain. And I think the way we can get clients results is partly we know how to get through our own challenges, and we gain wisdom. And part of coaching is actually helping clients gain their wisdom. Like they can learn from your wisdom, they can learn from their own introspection, but it's actually the making the space for that wisdom to come out that allows them to take the actions that lead to the client successes that then kind of snowball. So it's like wisdom is actually a big underlying part of coaching, I think. And honestly, like the long term pursuit for humans, I think wisdom is a really, I don't want to use the word noble, but important. It's both. It's an important pursuit for us to wisely navigate our lives, and
Yeah.
to help others do the same, is one of the coaches of calling of coaches.
Yeah, and I want to kind of separate the practical part from the idealistic part a little bit. So if I were to go back, some of the people that inspire me, Buddha inspires me, Plato inspires me, like these incredible people who, and Pythagoras inspires me. What do? They went on their own struggle, figured out a bunch of stuff, and then there were a bunch of people around them who wanted to learn, and they started doing all kinds of stuff with them. And they have different kind of stories. For example, Buddha was considered to be a prince who left that in pursuit of figuring out what enlightenment would be and why am I feeling all the things that I am. And he went on a long journey, and at the end of his life, he ended up with a few disciples. The effect of that we're seeing as Buddhism, as like that led to a huge change in the world. Plato, who we know from actually no Socrates, who we know.
I was
gonna
say Socrates might be a better example here.
Yeah, Socrates, who we know from the writings of Plato, who was his disciple. We know his journey, which I love his story as his principles is like he would rather take the poison for his principles rather than if you know his story a little bit, rather than get his disciples to pay the fine. There was power in what they did, and again, you might be doing different kinds of coaching, but now we're using. At the time, they didn't have business. There was no idea of business in the normal sense of the word that we know of. Now business has scaled. There's information. There's so many things. So the practical side is the medium with which we carry that forward, and the idealistic side is that we want to build a community around us. We want to build a community of people that we can serve. And at least from my perspective, the people that I serve, I want to be a better leader every day. So who do I want to work with? People who are leaders who want to be a better leaders. Those are the kind of clients I feel aligned with.
Same.
And
yeah, we
same
both
exact thing with these
like
characters. They were people who were aware. They were thinking about deeper things. What do? They gathered a bunch of other people who are like them. Mm-hmm. So the only difference is that now we're using the medium of business to sustain ourselves to be able to do that.
Yeah, and you don't have to use business, to your point, right? If you were independently wealthy, you would probably be drawn to doing that work anyways if you're a coach, right? Which is the work of helping clients, right? Helping your quote clients, in business terms, it's the clients, but helping your followers or your community or your fellow humans, whichever way you want to look at it. And it's interesting you bring up Socrates because he also is where the Socratic method came from, which is actually a foundational underpinning of coaching skills for sure. But as you think about like what is the medium, it's like there's a sustainable way to do coaching, and one of the ways, if you don't have independent wealth, is to get paid for it, and there is a value to it, so you can get paid for it, which is one of the coolest things about coaching. It can be part of your business model. And your business model is a way to sustain your life, but it's aligned with the thing that you care about doing, which is coaching. So, and making that difference.
Yeah. And this is why I think and this is where I think a lot of what coaches do breaks down, because we also live in a practical world where coaching is becoming a thing. It's an quote unquote industry, which really it isn't, but and it's one of those industries where the entry is very low bar.
Anybody can get in.
You just have to call yourself a coach.
Call himself a coach, exactly.
But then the problem is that the results that you gain as a coach, the bar is really high. And the reason for that is, first of all, it's not built, the industry itself is, but there's nowhere you can go as a starting coach and say, give me a job as a coach. Very few places. Most places, even if you go for a job, we've hired coaches as well, you need to be a little bit more experienced. They will ask you, and they will have criteria like, have you done at least 100 sessions? Do you have this many years of experience as a coach? And it's not just the theory certification you've gone through. You have to demonstrate that you've actually worked with people.
Those are the only certification doesn't mean that much. You know, you can get certified by anyone. Like you can go take a day long or a half a day long certification. You can do a written certification. You can do a week long. You can do a year long. There's so many different certifications about it, and not all of them mean what you think they mean.
They don't. And so a lot of coaches kind of get in hoping that this becomes a career path. I don't think that works. If coaching was like a therapy world, the way it's built up, it's a system, it's supported by insurance companies. So, and this is why we've had coaches who come from the therapy world. They cannot do well in the coaching world because they don't need to sell anything. They don't need to really build a business around it. They're supported by the system that has supported it for years. And by the way, the therapy world took a long time to build up. It's only recently where it's become recognized in so many ways. And maybe coaching will be at some point. And that's also my
It's
problem with the
starting to.
and yeah, right. And that's also my problem with the therapy world, with the medical world. Like, these are professions where you're directly impacting people in ways that you cannot even imagine, and people are going into it as a career model where you get to be successful. I'm like, I don't think that's the right intention.
That's a really interesting point you're bringing up. Like, it's like the careers that we have, like, and I think this is true of all careers, is every career or every job we have affects people in some way. Like you can't do a job without effect. Most jobs, perhaps there's some jobs that don't affect people as much as others, but every job has people that it affects. And so it's like, I wonder about the jobs that really affect deeply somebody's life. Like, if you're doing a surgery on somebody, like, that's a huge effect, right? And so, like, if you don't, like, take that, like, with a grain of sacredness, like it's a sacred responsibility we have to serve people and do the work that we do, knowing what the impacts it could be are, right? Like, we could really hurt somebody. Even as a coach, you can really lead somebody astray or hurt somebody through work that you do. It's kind of a big responsibility.
Yeah, and you remind me of a thought leader who said that when I go to a specialist and they say I need a kidney transplant, I can't quite tell if I need a kidney transplant or they need their yacht.
And actually, this is really interesting. You bring up a really important point in the coaching world. It's like, when you go take people through your sales process or through your discovery sessions or whatever, that's the question that people are wondering, is like, are you telling me this for me or for you? That's the clients are thinking that. And so that's where results comes in too. If you're getting results, to bring it back to the original topic, because we can rabbit hole all sorts of things here on this topic, but getting clients results is what helps people recognize that you're here for the clients. You can show them that in a discovery session, absolutely. But if your testimonials show that, if other people are referring them and telling them, hey, he got me results or she got me results, then that's a whole different language. It really sets that conversation to be, they're not wondering about your yacht, they're wondering about the result. And that's the frame you want to have in coaching. You don't want them to be questioning your commitment, your values, your selfishness or not, to moving them from that to knowing that you're all about helping them get the results.
Yeah, and I love that you brought, and that's essentially why we get paid as a coach. And I'd say coach's job is a lot harder, for example, in some senses than a therapist, because a therapist is going to get paid either way, and they can continue to get paid through insurance companies. But a coach has to prove whether or not you're creating results, because the client will only renew and refer based on that. By the way, there are therapists who will get referrals and other things, so that's true. And I'm not kind of putting down that profession, but it's just become more mainstream, so it's easier to compare. We're not mainstream yet. That means any person who becomes a really good coach, very likely they've created results. And ultimately we get paid for results, to create results. And most coaches have not been able to kind of cross that barrier. They have it in their mind that I can add, and they say it all the time, I can add a lot of value. But what the value, you don't get to decide that value. The client decides it. The market decides it. And that's where I'm
valuable, or did you know that it's valuable from someone else's perspective, right?
Yeah. And so some of the great coaches that I've been around, whenever a coach gets up, like, their client be like, well, I've created so much value, everything, I don't know why I'm not getting clients. They'll be like, can you tell me a little bit about the value that you've created? And they will go on. It's like, well, they feel happier, they feel connected. A lot of it is in things that, of course, people care about. But when you're looking at the investment value in a marketplace, there's no tangible change that they can talk about. So as an example, when I started out as a coach, my results were more like, well, this person feels more satisfied with their life. That's a good thing. It created some results.
And that is valuable. It's
valuable, but it wasn't valuable enough for this person to renew or refer to me. And that was the ability that I had in the beginning. As I grew, for example, there was a point where all of a sudden I started working with somebody. Within 3 months, this person quit a 20-year career and jumped into a new business path. They moved state. They started making different decisions. So I can talk about the decisions and the ROI of those decisions, the effect of it on their family, home life, so many things. those are tangible things. Some of it could be financial, some of it could be powerful strategic decisions for them, for their families. Then I started working with teams. Then I started with communities. Then I started working with families and communities. The impact of that, when I start to share the stories around that, and more than anything, I'm seeing a lot of times when I'm looking at these, I'm like, really, I helped along this. I feel weird about that half the time. And then ultimately, when I listen to these stories, when I watch them share this, when they connect me with others, a lot of times my clients, when they share this and they say, oh, he has changed my life, and my first thing is thank you, but I also want to give credit. They had to do a lot of the hard work in the process. But that relationship between you showed up, did the work, and the results happen through the client's actions, the effect of that usually leads to creating a business, which means that either this client is staying with you longer, or referring other people, or connecting you with their networks, or promoting your brand, whatever that looks like. And that translates to consistent clients. Until those results are there in the marketplace, you can say it in your head all you want. You're a brilliant coach. You create a lot of value, all that stuff. And it might be true from your perspective, but it's not real out in the marketplace yet.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really great point. That, I've had a lot of examples of on both sides, especially earlier in my career. It's like, I remember one of my first coaching clients when I became an entrepreneur. They hired me and then quit like halfway through before the second payment was due. And I'm like, but I'm creating so much value. It's like, I'm running through my certification here. And it's working. And it was doing something, but it wasn't nearly as valuable as the money they were paying or the time they were investing. All the way from that to someone who's renewed with me for 5 years at the 5-figure level per investment. It's important to like recognize there's a journey here. There's a journey from that place of like where you think it's valuable, but you don't actually know, to a place where you know it's valuable because it's been validated. Somebody paid for it, and you can't argue. Even if you were trying to devil's advocate yourself, like I suck as a coach. If somebody's renewing, well, you don't suck that much.
Yeah. And that's a weird thing. Like even some of the best coaches I've met, they have so many moments of self-doubt. But you know what they do? They will go listen to a testimonial, or watch it at this point, watch a testimonial. But in the past, when I used to like there, for example, what's his name? Brian Tracy in his book talks about like have a folder of all your testimonials written. Now we have something even more powerful. The client is talking with emotions in front of you, or they're talking about you, or
like videos.
I did that. I didn't think I could. It was like, it's not about me, but it created some results in that process. Now I can carry that forward, because we're human beings. We're going to create doubt and all that stuff. But the reality is that unless you begin the journey, and the first piece is risky, it's vulnerable to put yourself out there and say, you know what, I can help people.
And to risk being seen as somebody who cannot create value, that's hard, right? Yeah. Like that's a very, very vulnerable risk, right? Like to go out there and not get the clients and not get the renewal, that can like devastate you emotionally, subconsciously, without you even realizing it, and make you not want to do it, which I spent a long time like resisting, because I didn't want to go through that again, like not actually doing the work of getting clients, of trying to get clients, because like I didn't want, I keep on going back to that Back to the Future clip where Marty goes back in time to his dad and is like encouraging him to do stuff. He's like, Marty, I just don't think I could take that kind of rejection. Which is like, that's what we go through as coaches, right? Where it's like we don't feel we can take that kind of rejection, even though we can. We just do everything to avoid putting ourselves in that space where somebody could say no, or somebody could like not feel it was valuable. But that's the feedback you need. Like if you really want to be a coach longer term, if you want to make this a career, you can't get there without the feedback.
Yeah.
You gotta get the feedback. And like I wasted so long not getting feedback because I was afraid of it, not realizing that that's what I was doing, just distracting myself with other things. But the feedback is like, you didn't get me the results. If I read between the lines, but I didn't want to hear that. I'm trying to believe I'm amazing. I got a certification.
And you bring up such a powerful point. For the longest time, in the first couple of years of my me trying to build a coaching business, I had this secret wish. The wish was, I wish I didn't have to build a business and just work with people. I wish I didn't have to.
Somebody could just hand me the clients and I would just coach them.
I'll just and it's so it was such a weird thing. But what I didn't see is the value of putting yourself out there in a business model. I realized the power of that because it forced me to take the first risk, not the client. It forced me to realize the value of a client coming to you with something very vulnerable and risky and share with you and be open to growing. I don't think a lot of coaches realize that even though they've gone through the journey, I think they've forgotten the risk that it takes. But you're stepping up in a vulnerable way, showing up and saying, I'll take the first risk. I will be open to the rejections. I don't care if it's 50 or 100 or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the power of this medium. I think businesses, that if you can put yourself out there, it builds resilience. It helps you deal with things that I think far exceeds a lot of the struggles you might have gone through in the past, and that will actually help you become a better coach. And a lot of coaches cannot connect the two. In fact, they will have opposite feelings towards, or building a business. They will connect it to corruption. They will connect it to capitalism. They will connect to all kinds of things. But ultimately, at the basic foundational level, you're using a medium that allows you to serve people, but beyond a shadow of a doubt, you will know whether or not you're actually serving people or not, because the feedback doesn't come from you or some status or some recognition. It comes from your clients. Whether if they got value, they will either promote you or they won't. If they got value, they will either renew or they won't. And you have to be willing to take enough no's in the process to be able to go through enough people to say that, you know what, my purpose, my mission, this work matters to me. And that is not an easy thing for most people. But once you get it, you will not stop. So far, that's been my experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. You have to be willing to be terrible, to risk being terrible to get great, right? And you're probably not that terrible, right? You're probably,
Yeah.
but you have to take the risk of feeling terrible about it, right?
Yeah.
Feeling like you let them down or feeling like you didn't do a good job. That's actually where a lot of the resilience that you need as a coach. And we're talking about coaches as business owners of a coaching business. We're not necessarily talking about contract coaching, which is a totally different game, but you also need to produce results there because you still work for somebody and you have to show them the results. And if all of your clients come in for one session and then tell your boss, like, I don't want this coach, well, you're not getting results. You don't have a chance to get those results because you're not, you need to hear that feedback so you can improve. Right. And so, like, even if you're a contract coach, results matter. They just matter at a different level than your business. Because then if you're in a business where you have to do your own client development too, that's a whole other layer of risk taking, and not just financially but emotionally and personally. That is different from when you have a job as a coach, and even having a job as a coach. If you lose that job as a coach, same problem. So
yeah. I have a question for coaches who are listening. If you really think you can support people, serve people, or at the least, if you have a mission so powerful, my question is, why aren't you on rooftops screaming about the thing that's so valuable for you to share? Of course, I'm giving it in an extreme way, and a lot of times coaches will not serve, will not show up, will not put themselves out there. And my guess would be is that they're stuck in their own system. They haven't done their own growth yet. And the growth does not go attend the next class or go through the next course or whatever it is. It might be that you might have to start with courage. And then I think courage, a lot of people underestimate. You're hoping that you will have confidence without courage, but confidence is not the starting point. That's the end point. The starting point is an intention towards, I'm going to show up because even though I'm scared, I feel like I'm taking a risk. I feel like I'm not gonna be approved. I feel like I'm not gonna be that good. I feel like all kinds of doubts that might come in, but I'm still gonna show up because this mission is important. This purpose is important. My story is important. Why I'm doing is important, and I'm willing to go through the discomfort to create this. If you don't have that kind of thought process and belief that you've developed, it's likely that you're stuck in your mind. You're alone. You're not asking for support. You're not part of a community. You're not doing anything that will push you forward towards service, and that's likely why you don't have a business. And I'm not just speaking to you. This was the thing that I needed to admit early on in my business, and I constantly have to remind myself even to this day.
it's very common for the coaching journey to go through that process, right? But that's another adversity, another hardship that you can go through and gain wisdom from, so that you can build that resilience for yourself. Because being able to be confident to go to people around you to support them because you're trying to help if they want that help, tells you if you're not willing to do that, you'll never get a client, right? You'll never be able to go anywhere with coaching if you're not willing to go somewhere with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I'll
So
leave you all with one last quote. I forget who said that, but it's recent that keeps going through my mind. You can have whatever you want if you're willing to accept 1,000 no's for it.
is that Byron
And
Katie?
Byron Katie, right? Byron Katie. That was I couldn't find it directly from her, but Rich
I
said
know that
this
because
was
you quoted him last week. I think it was the
right.
same
So
thing.
it's stuck in my head, and I love that because it's that has been my journey. It's like I have to be open to the no's, and that requires you to show up as a different kind of human being because most people are not.
Yeah. So here's if you are like really struggling here, it's easier to just like level 0 is just like ask people, hey, could you have a conversation with me and see if I can help you, right? That's really simple. Like, and you can just go through that process with them if they're willing to. You can see like what worked. You can ask them what worked, didn't work. Get some feedback. That's like just a very, very, very simple. You can do that. You have people in your life. You can just ask and start having conversations and see what happens. You will learn what worked and what didn't work, and you will learn that you can lower your desk by accident while you're talking. My desk started moving down on the video. It's funny, and you will learn that it's just a matter of reps, having conversations, trying to help people, trying to serve, getting better, getting feedback, learning what works, what doesn't work, getting better, and just the self reflection of it's a journey and that you're on, and it's always this thing you want to just progress and keep on getting better. It's when you stop that's the problem.
Yeah.
How long will you stay stopped?
Yeah, for sure. And if you know, and I bet if you're a coach and you're around a community of coaches, coaches who are struggling with this. I'd love for you to share this with them as a value add because they're struggling. If you're struggling with this or you've overcome this, please share your thoughts below because we want to continue the conversation. Maybe some of the things we say don't resonate. Maybe you've had a different journey, or if you've had the same journey, share because then we're building evidence for coaches like, hey, this is the way forward, or here's an alternate way forward. Please share, please like. We want to get the message out. Why? Because we have a mission to support other coaches. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
And if you have that mission to support other people, come to cmc.coach, and we'd love to support you. Send us a message, join our Facebook group, and we will talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye.